This is the Dallas Morning News.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into SportsDay Insider presented by the Dallas Morning News. I am Kevin Sherrington, joined by my old pals David Moore and Evan Grant, who is celebrating his 85th birthday today. Let's all say
you wear it well.
He does. You are the most fit 85-year-old person I've ever seen in my life. Let me just say
I am fit for an 85-year-old. If only I wasn't 59.
Oh, that's it. That's it. 59.
As I like to remind the two of you, I am the kid of this bunch. I am the Gen Z of this bunch.
Yeah.
You're a lot of things of this bunch, but I'm not thinking of any of those types.
You reek millennial, the skinny jeans are a nice touch. I will say that.
Or just reek. I don't know if he reeks of any of the other stuff.
I'm laughing at the thought of me in skinny jeans.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the Cowboys celebrated Evan's birthday Sunday. I got to tell you, David, as I've been reminded by several loyal readers, none of us picked the Cowboys to win that opener.
I was shocked when I picked up the paper and I saw that it was like a 6-man complete disregard of the Cowboys.
It was a sweep.
Yeah. And of course, whenever that happens, of course,
it always goes the other way. Almost always.
Yes.
Now, please see Green Bay playoff game where everything
Yes. I always like to remind people of stuff like that. When I'm right about this kind of stuff, y'all don't say anything. Only when I lose do y'all bring it up. So, yeah. But I have to tell you, David, now, of course, I didn't see them play any preseason games. I was gone and all that stuff. But, you can't tell anything.
Well, none of the players that mattered play any preseason games anyway, right? So you wouldn't have been able to tell.
Exactly. But I have to tell you, I really thought, first of all, Tyler Guyton's going to have trouble with Myles Garrett, right? And then, you've got these new guys in the offense. They didn't add anybody to the running game that's going to make any impact there in the first game at any rate. The Browns are coming off a playoff season. They're playing at home. The Cowboys were bad on the road last year. If not bad, at least certainly mediocre. And then they come out there and that's as good an opening game as I can recall in the Dak playoff era or the Dak career era.
Dallas was 12-5 last year. All 5 of the losses came on the road. That was an emphasis going into this regular season by Mike McCarthy, which was we need to become a better regular season road team. And you certainly saw that in that game when, look, the second half was a different animal. As soon as Kevontae Turpin returned that punt 2 minutes deep into the second half to give them a 27-3 lead, that game was over. It was just about managing it the rest of the way on both sides. And the Cowboys play deteriorated at that point. But when it mattered, they controlled both lines of scrimmage, made big plays. Mike Zimmer's defense was certainly rugged and opportunistic in this opener. And I thought Dak Prescott was sharp in the first half when he staked the team to that lead. Not as sharp in the second. I think he only threw for, 35 yards or something in the second half.
Didn't have to throw the ball in the second half, though.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the other side of it, right? Now, the other thing you saw is the run game didn't give them much, and they weren't controlling the clock the way they needed to because their run game is suspect. So there are certainly signs to work on. But, Dallas opened the regular season last year on the road with a 40-0 win against the New York Giants. The Cleveland Browns are a much, much better team than the New York Giants. This was a playoff team last year. It won 11 games. The defense is a top 5 defense in this league. It is very good at home. I believe that the Browns defense only gave up something like 5 passing touchdowns at home all last season. So this is an outstanding defense. Dallas did a good job of moving the ball early, staking itself to a lead, and they just completely confounded the Browns offense. So, I have a very impressive opener all around, and I think there was such pessimism coming into this season just based on how the postseason ended last year, the lack of activity in free agency, the waiting until the last possible moments to sign CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott to extensions. I think that mood I think emotionally, the mood did not reflect the talent level of what this team is. It is still the nucleus of a 12-5 team that has been 12-5 the last 3 years. That is a serious playoff team in the NFC.
All right, since you can't learn anything from preseason, and opening games are often mirages as well,
Yeah.
what's the most long-term encouraging sign either one of you saw? I'd be curious if you've got different answers.
Well, let me go first because I want to preempt anything David says. No, I'm just kidding. But I will say this: this was not something in particular that's going to. And maybe it will have long term effects. But the two linebackers, Eric Kendricks and DeMarvion Overshown, were spectacular in that game. DeMarvion Overshown, who was a good player at Texas, but when I watched him play there, I always just thought, yeah, he's a nice player, but I don't see big time play there. I don't see him making big time. He wasn't dominating games. That play where he ran down Deshaun Watson and then ran past Micah Parsons, blew past him, was an all-world kind of play. I think if they can get this kind of play out of those two guys at a position where they have really struggled the last several years on their linebacker, they were having, first of all, they're having safeties play linebacker, which was, it obviously works in the pass game, not so much in the run game, obviously. I think that this defense has tremendous potential, and Mike Zimmer's a pretty great defensive coordinator.
Yeah, I'll give a different one, but just to echo that, they used DeMarvion Overshown to spy Watson in that game, and it was highly effective. The play you're talking about was his incredible closing speed. As soon as Watson got out of the pocket, he was Overshown's, and he did an outstanding job. And his ability to spy can freeze up, in my mind, Micah Parsons even more to move him around and do things with him. And as quick, I'm amazed at how quick Overshown was in his first regular season game since an ACL injury. That made it even more remarkable to me how he looked. Diggs, for that matter, too, with his interception. But I will go on the offensive line here. Starting two rookies on the offensive line. Tyler Guyton, he did give up one sack. Nothing to be ashamed of there with Myles Garrett bearing down on you. And he did have one other penalty. Overall, graded out very well. He, Mike McCarthy said, probably the greatest tribute I have for him is that we didn't feel we had to protect him over the course of the game. We just ran our normal stuff. We didn't feel, okay, we can't run this over on his side, or if we're going to do this play, we're going to have to give him some protection. We just left him out there, not unprotected in all situations. I mean, they picked their spots where he needed some help, but they didn't have to alter their game plan as the game went along because he wasn't able to stand up to the pressure of Tyler Guyton. And two, Cooper Beebe graded out phenomenally for his first game in a position he's never played in a competitive game. No pressures allowed up the middle. No snafus, no miscues. Zach Martin was talking after the game about how he was just blown away by how the rookie, the command that Cooper Beebe had in his first game at center, as far as recognizing what the defensive fronts were and quickly and declaratively getting the offensive line and telling them, okay, this is what we're going to do here.
That was another thing, David, that I was thinking about with these rookies. And obviously Overshown is not. He was in last year's class and got hurt and missed the whole season.
But first regular season game action was in this game. So that was quite a debut for his NFL regular season debut.
Absolutely. And this rookie class has already outperformed last year's entire season. Last year, the top of that was probably their worst draft. I don't know, maybe in Will McClay's tenure as a guy in charge of the war room. Yeah. And this year is already turned out where you got those two guys. We didn't even say anything about Kalen Carson and the job that he did at corner.
He got his hand on 2 balls, dropped 1 clear interception, but stood up well. Leofau he did some good things, and it's overshadowed by Overshown because Overshown was just so spectacular athletically in what you saw. But Leofau held up well too. That's 4 rookie starters. That's the most rookie starters the Cowboys have had on opening day since the merger in 1970.
And this is really important because going forward, after you're spending so much money on Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, you're going to spend pretty soon a lot of money on Micah Parsons. They're going to end up having about, $120 million between the 3 of them on your salary cap. And so you're going to have these young guys step up and play, and they're going to have to keep churning that roster because of it. But if you can come up with players like this and find guys like this to play, well, then that'll work.
I believe Micah Parsons may tell you it will be closer to $130 million on the cap for the 3 of them. I think he will want closer to the $40 million average than the $30 million average you just gave him. But yeah, significant portion. But that's it. And Jerry Jones publicly, for the first time, really openly explained why this process took so long with Dak Prescott, and he was having to get his head around the fact that, look, it was never a question of whether they wanted to keep Dak Prescott. They wanted to keep Dak Prescott. The more complicated internal discussion was, at what price can we afford to keep him, and at what price does keeping him become so great that it compromises our ability to put a competitive team around him and really hurts our chances to get back to the Super Bowl versus winning them. And once Jerry Jones was finally comfortable with what that number was and how Dak fit into it, then it became a question of not if Dak Prescott would sign, but when. And when was agreeing to the deal about 45 minutes before he got on the bus on Sunday for the short ride over to the stadium for the game.
Yeah, listen, there was no other way to go than to re-sign him. There was no one on hand. We saw Sunday what happens when you start a rookie quarterback. The Bears started Caleb Williams, who's probably maybe the most promising, quarterback prospect to come out of the draft in several years, and he threw for 93 yards in the opener. And that's not to say, other guys have had bad openers too. Troy Aikman's wasn't great, but
Troy didn't have a great rookie season though either. And I think Stroud kind of altered the perception of it. It's still for a long time that a rookie that steps up and performs like Stroud did last year is the outlier. But because he just did it, I think people are going, oh, you'll have it this year with Caleb Williams and some of these other young guys, Jaden. I think it's going to take a little bit of time. I think history shows that what Stroud did and what Prescott did his rookie season were anomalies. And remember that team was structured much differently that Prescott came on. He wasn't asked to do a lot of heavy lifting.
No, he wasn't. And that's the way the Cowboys played in this game. Now, look, had they come out and played like we all thought they were going to play, well, then, okay, go ahead and turn it around. If you're going to be a 9-8 team, then what the heck? Go ahead and break it down and start all over. But this team, the way it played in that game and the talent we saw on the field looks like a 12 or 13 win team. And the last thing you want to do then is to break that up, right? Going forward, if you're going to be a playoff team, and not only a playoff team, but one that looks like it could progress to the conference championship game, well, then it's incumbent upon you to make sure that you're doing everything you can to get there, and letting that starting quarterback go of Dak's caliber is not the way to do that.
Yeah, and that's where, like I said, that this wasn't a Green Bay situation where, okay, we'll move on from Aaron Rodgers because we believe Jordan Love can get the job done. Point to Green Bay again. It wasn't okay, we'll move on from Brett Favre because we believe Aaron Rodgers can get the job done. You have to prepare to move on, especially when the rest of your nucleus is as good as the Cowboys are. Now with this win in the opener, there's only one team since the start of the 2021 regular season that has won more games in the regular season than Dallas, and that's Kansas City. Now that leads to the second part of the equation is, but Kansas City's won 2 titles in that span, and Dallas has only won 1 playoff game. That is the real issue. That is another reason why Dak Prescott went down to the wire, is because his inability to lead this team past the divisional round in the postseason. All of that being said, you can't just shrug your shoulders and dismiss the Cleveland win or what a team does in the regular season just because it has not translated into success for the Cowboys. You still have to put yourself in position, and the regular season indicates and establishes what you are capable of doing in the postseason. They just haven't carried out the second part of that equation yet for a
Yeah,
long
there's no
time.
question. No question about that. I want to go back to DeMarvion Overshown. I'm just kind of
Sure.
really enamored with him at this point. So you talked about that he was being used as a spy. I've always thought that, let's say when you're playing the Eagles and Jalen Hurts, that begs a spy to me. A guy like him who is going to take off at some point. And there were so many games when he was really successful, when he's at his peak, in which he just waits a few seconds, doesn't see anything, then takes off, and there's no one around him. I'm wondering how successful that could be in that, or is it just a different kind of scheme because of what the Browns are doing as compared to the Eagles, and that will determine whether they do that or not.
Oh, it can be successful. I mean, the moment the pocket was compromised and Watson went outside of it, he belonged to Overshown. That was basically his charge. Jalen Hurts is a great example. You'll see that there as well. You'll see it in week 3 against Baltimore and Lamar Jackson. I mean, they play some mobile quarterbacks coming up, and this is why you see now why, even though he never got to the regular season last year before the ACL injury, why the previous coaching staff and Dan Quinn and his staff were so excited about DeMarvion Overshown and were already building a role for him in a package in their defense last year. And this is a lot of what they envisioned. Instead, what they did was they went with Marquise Bell down there. Didn't have the size, doesn't have the speed. Very good. He did a very good job of it, and he's a very solid player, but just doesn't have the athletic ability and size of Overshown. And Overshown's closing speed in that game was remarkable. Just remarkable. And the other thing you see with these linebackers is that it really helps the guys in the defensive front, because they can now just go, okay, our linebackers have the size to clean up after this if a guy breaks through here to the second level. Whereas, last year, the last few years, because of the size of the defense, it had to be swarming, and guys in areas had to go and kind of break once the guy broke to the second level. It changes things. Now, what remains to be seen is how good will Overshown and Leofau and these guys be in coverage when teams start throwing those little intermediate passes, and will Dallas be hurt there? So that's where you watch this going forward, because that's what you give up in this. You're gaining size and the ability to be better in the run game, but you're also giving up a little something in the potentially in the passing game. We'll see how that goes.
Do we see, speaking of the running games and the Cowboys running game, do you see any possibilities of Dalvin Cook at some point jumping in here? It wouldn't be as early as this week against the Saints, would it?
I wouldn't think so. I think I think from the Baltimore game on, based on how they're running as a committee, is the time to start watching and seeing whether or not Dalvin Cook is going to be, he's poised right there. I think as soon as any individual stumbles in this committee, or the committee overall isn't doing what it needs to do, I think you will see him come up and get in there pretty quickly.
The worst part about this start for me is that it makes Jerry Jones look exactly right. Isn't that the most galling thing, that, Jerry was just cool about everything. We're all just railing at him about all this stuff that's happening, and he's acting like, what's the problem? And the whole world is raining on Jerry, and it turns out he's exactly right. I tell you, this is a bitter pill for me to swallow.
Oh, I believe the majority of the fan base will still say Jerry is always wrong and will not accept your premise.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm willing to buy that this is a prove 'em right moment for Jerry. Maybe it's a prove 'em right moment for Jerry. But look, it's
Oh, well,
opening game, and I know that Cleveland was a playoff team last year, but they do have Deshaun Watson running their offense, and they are the Cleveland Browns. And if there's anybody who's got a history of thinking that he's right and fooling himself, it's Jerry Jones. So,
yeah. Oh, I'm not saying this is just for good. I'm just giving Jerry this one game. I will say
He's giving
also
him a
about the
week. He's not
yeah.
going overboard here. He's just giving him a
No.
week.
I will say too about Deshaun Watson and the Browns. I think he's in the wrong offense. He's not in the offense he ran with the Texans, in which he was very successful. And I think that Kevin Stefanski has made a mistake and tried to make him into something that he's make him into something that he's not. And that's always the case with all quarterbacks. They have to be in the right systems.
What, they won 11 games last year, and I think he only played 5 of them, right?
Exactly.
5 or 6. Yeah.
They're gonna end up having to decide something. They'll have to change to him because he's got a huge contract and they have to make that thing work for him.
Only one quarterback in NFL history has a larger guarantee than Deshaun Watson.
I bet I know who it is.
Who, Evan?
My guess would be Dak Prescott.
Ding, 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 ding.
There you go. Good job. All right, that's going to do it for the Cowboys segment of our podcast. We're going to move over now and talk about the Rangers, who are suddenly playing like they were supposed to all year long, Evan. They've won 4 series in a row. They're
just in time.
Yeah, just in time for that late playoff chase, right? Are they mathematically eliminated yet, Evan?
Kevin, they're 6 games out of the wild card with 8 games to play. It's amazing. I actually, on my nightly twirl through insomnia, I came downstairs to the office and just for giggles looked at their tiebreakers against the teams all ahead of them. They are in 8th place in the wild card hunt. Added to that, they lose the tiebreaker to 4 of the 7 teams that are ahead of them. Now, don't ask me what would happen if by some chance the Rangers and any of these teams ended up in a multi-team tie. But the Rangers' best chance here would be that Kansas City falls to the number 3 wild card and that the Rangers can match them. They have a 5-1 record against Kansas City this year. So if it was a 2-way tie and somehow the Rangers and the Royals, and it would require the Royals to basically go, I think, 3-11 the rest of the way, or 3-14 the rest of the way, the Rangers might just find themselves with a wild card berth.
That is the craziest
thing. To simplify this, according to Fangraphs, their chances of winning the wild card are 0.6% at this point.
0.6. Wow. I'll tell you what. Well, I will say this. It is at least encouraging to see them start to play better. And they are playing. They're starting to play like the guys that we thought they were last year. And I think this is important. I know a lot of people would say, well, isn't it better just to tank and try to get a better draft position? I think that it's important for this team as the defending world champs to kind of right itself at this point, go into the offseason knowing, okay, this is what we really need to do, and going into next season, not worrying that, wow, maybe we were just a huge fluke.
Yeah, I think, look, to oversimplify everything, finishing on a strong note is important, and going into the offseason feeling like you stared down some adversity and battled back. You played through to the end. That's all important. I don't know if it answers you any questions about what you have to do in the off season, because I think those questions are still there. The questions about what do you do with Jonah Heim, whose OPS is now below 600 and he's in arbitration? What do you do about Nathaniel Lowe, who's going into a 3rd year of arbitration? What do you do about Adolis Garcia, who's in arbitration, who's got $9 million guaranteed? And how do you approach the pitching staff? All those questions are going to linger. I do think that the positive things here are Wyatt Langford has played better in August and September. Josh Young has gotten his feet under him. And Jack Leiter's made 3 starts since returning to the rotation, each a little bit better than the next. That's important. And on Thursday, Kumar Rocker is going to make his major league debut with the very much understated intent. Look, this guy's probably going to be in the plans for the 2025 rotation. So those are all things that I think are real long-term positives for this club.
Well, there's no question about that. Especially the Rocker thing to me is intriguing now because, well, for one thing, now when you're following a bad team at the end of the year and a young guy comes up, that's all you have to look forward to, right? This is at least a time where the Rangers have righted themselves. They look like they're back to who they really are going into next season, and then you're carrying perhaps these young guys along with you, meaning obviously Wyatt Langford, maybe Jack Leiter, and then Rocker. I'm really interested in seeing Rocker. I tell you, I have and have always had more, I don't want to say faith, but maybe more hope in him as a starter than Leiter, just because of the build. He's a big guy, and he does have a great breaking ball. And he wasn't throwing hard when they drafted him, and I think some of that, I guess, was fixed with that mystery surgery that he had or whatever it was that I don't think
It was
anyone
more fixed with the Tommy John, with the elbow surgery.
he was
The shoulder surgery that he had in between the time that the Mets failed him on the physical, I think that helped, but I think the real issue was that the elbow was just hanging on by a thread.
Okay. So we can expect him to throw in the upper 90s at 98, 99. That's where his fastball is going to ride.
His fastball's averaged 98.7 in the minor leagues. And the thing for me, I saw Rocker at his nadir in college with Vanderbilt. He pitched on a Friday night, had no fastball whatsoever. And the thing that was most impressive about me is the way he battled and the way he threw strikes with his other pitches. Leiter the next day came out and punched out 12 Ole Miss batters, and it was clear if you were going to draft one guy over the other, Leiter had the better stuff. But I came away from that weekend still impressed by Kumar and the way he attacked hitters and the way he battled without giving up. What I think now is Kumar's got as better stuff than Jack again now that he's healthy, and I think that he throws more strikes. The starts that I've seen in the minor leagues have been unlike any starts I've seen from a Rangers minor league pitcher in my time on this beat. This is just absolute dominance. Before David, just the last thing, I went back and in this morning's column, I put some comps.
Have you dropped a lit match into your lap or something? Is there a problem there, Evan?
In the column I wrote this morning, I put some comps in. Rocker's made 7 minor league starts since going to Double-A, at Double-A and Triple-A this year. It's the same number of starts that Paul Skeens made at Triple-A before the Pirates called him up. And Paul Skeens' numbers in the minor leagues, the number 1 pick in last year's draft, were all overwhelming. A 0.99 ERA, a sub 500 OPS allowed, 45 strikeouts to 8 walks, all really impressive. And Rocker in his 7 starts has had better numbers, a touch better, because it's hard to be much better, a touch better. So there's a good comp there for what Kumar Rocker has done. And I just think that this is, in Chris Young's words, this is an opportunity basically to get him assimilated with the full intent that they're going to go to spring training next year, giving him every opportunity to lock down a rotation spot.
If he does well, and then if Leiter continues to do pretty well, I would say the chances of both of those guys making the rotation next year are very slim. Chances of one of them making it is probably not great. But I would think that
I disagree on one. I bet you one of them makes the rotation.
Okay, if one of them makes the rotation, then I would think that the chances of Max Scherzer coming back and
Max Scherzer's not coming back.
He's not coming back. You're
I'll bet you that Max Scherzer doesn't come back and that one of them makes the rotation.
Okay. Well, I was kind of like that last week, and you said, "Oh, I don't know." You kind of made me seem like that maybe Max would come back. I find that hard to believe, especially if you're trying to bring the payroll down. This is what has to happen, right? You got to get one of these kind of guys has to make the rotation, and you wouldn't be pushing anything, I don't think, with either one of those guys. They're both. I mean, how old are Leiter and Rocker now?
Rocker is going to be 25 in November. Leiter is 23 or 24.
Yeah, it's time. It's time for these guys
Yes.
to step up. It's not like you're pushing them. They
But if
both
you've
played
got,
in
let's
college.
put it this way: if you've got Cody Bradford, who really has impressed me with his ability to pitch, and who won last week, had a start in which he won last week with the slowest four-seam fastball in the big leagues this year, which to me was impressive. It demonstrates that you can throw a fastball at 88 miles an hour, and if you've got location and you've got good pitch sequencing, you can still compete. Cody Bradford's going to be an inexpensive option for the rotation next year, and one of Leiter or Rocker would be an inexpensive option for the rotation next year. The other would be a depth option for sometime early in the season. You've got Jacob deGrom. You hope to have Tyler Mahle fully healthy. And you've got John Gray under contract. Right there, that's 5. I'm not sure if the Rangers had their druthers, I bet that they would like to see if they could potentially move Gray and some of that contract and use that to try and re-sign Nathan Eovaldi.
I think that's a great plan. Is it possible that Cody Bradford is the next Kyle Hendricks?
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. The profile is similar. When I looked at average guys who relied on their fastballs and who had sub 90 mile an hour fastballs, Kyle Hendricks was obviously was the first guy who came up as a comp. So was the guy who pitched against the Rangers the other day, Tyler Anderson from the Angels.
Yeah, I think that would be pretty good for me. I tell you, that's
Kyle Hendricks, but Kevin, Kyle Hendricks would be in the modern day era. Kyle Hendricks would be the top of the scale for comps. You got to run like Kyle Hendricks did for a couple of years. You've done great. If you get serviceable big league innings from Cody Bradford, you've done just fine there.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'm not saying he's going to end up being Kyle Hendricks, but that's certainly the model of somebody that you would like for him to approach. So I think that this team, looking forward to next year, the rotation doesn't bother me. Now it'll be interesting to see what they do in the bullpen. What are the contracts there for the guys in the back end of the bullpen?
Gone. Robertson's got an option. It's at $7 million. It's a player option, I believe. So I don't think he'd come back at $7 million, but we'll see. I don't, as good as Kirby Yates has pitched this year, it's hard for me to say I'm going to go invest big time dollars in a 38-year-old closer who hasn't been terribly healthy. So you've got to find some answers there. The way I'm looking at things right now, they've got to get a bat. They've got to have another bat option somewhere. They've got to get 2 back end relievers, whether that's somebody to go with Robertson and a 7th inning guy, or somebody to go 8th and 9th. That, and probably at least one starting pitcher. So I think they've got their work cut out for them in terms of acquisitions. There's 4 big acquisitions that I think they need to make.
Yeah, yeah, you're right about the back end. I think they got some candidates for the mid innings next season, but that could be a real problem. And the biggest issue is a bat. All right, that's going to do it for the Rangers segment of our podcast. We're going to move over and talk about colleges. I was up in Ann Arbor, first trip up there, never been before. Went to Zingerman's Deli, had a Reuben. Best Reuben I've ever had. It was really good.
How'd you find out about Zingerman's Deli?
I did a lot of research, as I always do, and unearthed that. I don't think anybody ever heard of it before I did that. That sounds like somebody running for president, doesn't it? Anyway, yeah, it was really great, and Ann Arbor was great. But I'll have to say this: I wish it had been a better game. Texas just blew Michigan out of the water. That game in the first half. I don't think there was anybody in the press box who thought, oh, they might come back here. There was no way for them to come back. Poor, Davis Warren, their walk-on senior quarterback, was just not equipped for it. Texas played really well. Quinn Ewers played very well, and they mounted that 24-3 halftime lead, and the game was over. So that was a little disappointing. It would have been fun to see something really happen. They just completely took that 111,000 fans out of the game. It was like a ghost town in there. You could hear the Texas fans more than you could the Michigan fans. So that was very impressive. That's 2 years in a row now they've won a big game on the road. Quinn Ewers went into Alabama, Tuscaloosa. Last year they won that game. That game really propelled them into the playoff picture. That was a big consideration for the committee, the fact that they won that game. This win will not do as much for them, especially since they're playing in the SEC this year, and so that'll have a much larger argument for them going forward. It does set up a really potentially great regular season game, October the 19th in Austin, when Georgia visits Royal Memorial Stadium. I'm hoping that holds up, that they're both still 1-2. That would be a lot of fun. I'll be down there for that game. So that would be a lot of fun to see what happens there. Even if Texas loses that game and if they go on and run the table after that, it won't hurt them. They'll obviously still make the 12-team playoff. The problem is that the way the playoff is set up, that if they're the top 4 spots are all conference champions. So Texas would clearly, at this point, you would think, be better than Utah. Let's say if Utah wins the Big 12. Well, if Utah does win the Big 12, which I think they probably will, they'll be the 4th seed. And if Texas is the next best team, they'll be the 5th seed. And the difference is that those first 4 seeds all get a bye. So it's important to try to, everybody says, oh, these regular season games aren't important. That's pretty important. If you can get a bye in the playoffs, then you need to win your conference to do that. So that's going to be really interesting to see how that all comes down. Georgia has a tremendous defense, and I obviously they have a great offense with Carson Beck. I think that right now those are the 2 best teams in college football. Ohio State may be the most talented team, but right now the way things are going, I think that those are 1 and 2. You boys got any questions about anything?
I agree.
So your Bulldogs, are you sold on them?
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to tell anything about the Tennessee Tech game. I watched Clemson, and I thought, look, I did not think that Kirby or the offense were going to show a whole lot until they needed to. I was just really impressed with the way they beat Clemson down in the second half. I liked the way Nate Frazier kind of emerged as a running threat. They played without Travis Etienne, so I think their running game is going to be, as usual, a real asset. And you get into SEC play now. I think it's Kentucky this week. Becomes more of a test. But yeah, the Texas game. Georgia's got Texas. They've got Alabama. That's their October is Alabama and Texas. Texas is Oklahoma and Georgia. So it'll be an interesting month, and I'm planning to join you, Kevin, on October 19th. So
come on down. That'd be great.
Really excited about that.
Well, and then of course we've got the other big games too. The A&M and Texas that game is back, and that will be the Saturday after Thanksgiving. We'll see if the Aggies.
You think A&M confidence is high going into that game, given the results of the first 2 weeks?
I think the thing that really kills A&M is that they lose to Notre Dame, and then Notre Dame gets beat by Northern Illinois. Yes. What do you think that they're thinking about that?
Kevin, I think that's what David was hinting at.
I mean, I
think that's what he was trying to do in a subtle, kind of sarcastic way.
Well, it was not only that. Texas Tech fans feel the same way. That they lost their first game, or they won the first game. They beat Abilene Christian, but they needed overtime to do it, 52-51, and
needed a failed 2-point conversion to do it.
Exactly. So I'll tell you what, it's a pretty.
That would have been my lock of the week, by the way.
What?
My lock of the week last week would have been taking Washington State at home against Texas Tech.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, I thought the lock was Texas and Michigan. I thought Texas would win that game. I didn't think they would win like that, but I thought they'd win that game. But I will say this, it's been a pretty weak showing for the power conference teams from Texas so far. Houston's been terrible. Baylor's just been barely average. Tech's been less than average. TCU has not been impressive either. SMU, losing to BYU, that was not good. So, and then A&M has, of course, they struggled in the game against Notre Dame passing. Connor Wegman was no better really the next week, and even though that was a big win against McNeese State, he still wasn't impressive throwing the ball, and I don't really understand it. I think he's a really talented young quarterback. And they need to get that figured out because they're going to need some offense. So, that's still an emotional game, though, when it comes around to play in Texas, and we'll see what they do there. That game is in College Station, so that will be dangerous for the Longhorns, and they'll need to make sure that they take care of business. But that is the thing they have done. They have played really well on the road. Last year, after beating Alabama, they came back, and then they lost to Oklahoma at the State Fair. Texas can't afford to do that this year. Jackson Arnold struggled a little bit last week in that win over Houston. So I don't think they present a formidable obstacle other than the fact that that's an emotional game at the State Fair, and so is the A&M game in College Station, which has been restored this year. So that'll be fun. All right, that's going to do it for our podcast this week. We thank you for coming in, and we hope that you'll be back next week. We'll have more to report on how everything goes and how the Cowboys do against the Saints out at Jerry World on Sunday. So from everybody in here to everybody out there, thanks, and we'll see you next time.